In this video we're going to have a look at creating a design for the beach survey database. Let's have a look at the task scenario. You've been asked to create a database for an organisation called Get Our Beaches Clean. The organisation is managed by a small group of volunteers. These volunteers review all the beaches every year. The database will record information about the beaches, the volunteers, the yearly reviews. Beaches are categorised by their type, e.g. sandy. The number of times a beach has been cleaned during the year is recorded. A volunteer may be assigned to one or more districts, e.g. Boroughside, and a district has only got one volunteer. A beach has a cleanliness rating of at least 1 and a maximum of 3. 1 is the best rating. So initially from this, we've most likely got beach, volunteer and review as entities, but they've also mentioned a thing called a district as well. That's possibly an entity, but we'll have a look at that when we look at the data. Here's the sample data. We've got attributes, beach ID, rubbish collected in kilograms, number of cleanups in a year, district name, review year, volunteer mobile, volunteer surname, beach name, volunteer ID, beach type, lifeguard, a district ID, that indicates to us that's going to be a district entity, and a cleanliness rating review. So let's have a look first at this beach ID. We've got 1, 2, 3. Let's have a look at 1. The beach name is Castle, and we've got a lifeguard, yes, and we know it's in District 1, and it's had 2 rating reviews. And we've got different rubbish collected, and then we've got a number of cleanups per year. If we just look at this rubbish collected a minute, you might be tempted to put that with the beach. But if we think a beach has got 2 reviews, a better one to look at actually is beach number 3. We've got 2 reviews, and that rubbish collected is dependent on both the review and the beach. Because if we have a look at that second review for beach number 3, we've got a different rubbish collected and a different number of cleanups. Let's have a look at district. We've got a district ID, so that's primary key, and then we've got a district name. We've got 3 different districts. If we look at district 1, it's Boroughside and Boroughside, so that identifies the district. Similarly, if we look at the volunteer ID, again, a primary key. We've only got 2 volunteers, but volunteer 1 is Frost, and there's the phone number, the mobile number. Volunteer 2 is Janacek, and there's the phone number. Just have a look at this cleanliness rating review a minute. For beach number 1, in 2018, the review was a 1. Beach 1, review year 2019, it was a 2. So that cleanliness rating again depends on both the review year and the beach ID. So some questions. Can you identify any primary keys that might uniquely identify potential entities? We've certainly got a beach ID, a volunteer ID and a district ID, but we've actually got entities beach, volunteer, district and review. We've no primary key for that review yet, but we'll deal with that when we come to create the ERD. Let's start asking ourselves some questions about the potential relationships about this data. Can a beach have a number of reviews? The answer for that was yes. And can a review be for more than one beach? The answer is no, it's for that beach. Can a district have more than one beach? I've put not clear for this. If we just go back and have a look at the data, we've got here District 1, Beach ID 1, District 2, Beach ID 2, District 3, Beach ID 3. So the implication from this data is that it's a one-to-one relationship between beach and district ID. That's most unusual to have a one-to-one relationship. Data might as well be in the same table. I'm going to assume that a district could have more than one beach, although it's not specifically stated in this sample data. Let's scroll back down. Can a person volunteer on more than one district? The answer is yes. And can a district have more than one volunteer? The answer is no. Again, let's just scroll back up and have a look at the data. So for District 1, we've got just volunteer 1. But for District 2, we've got volunteer 2. Think now about the relationships. There's no actual many-to-many relationships in this database, but there are one-to-many relationships between. A beach can have many reviews, a district can have many beaches, and a volunteer can volunteer on many districts. Let's have a look at the initial ERD. So here is our initial ERD. We've got our entities, volunteer, district, beach, review. A volunteer can volunteer on many districts, but a district only has one volunteer. And a beach can have many reviews. Next thing we'll do is add the primary keys to the ERD. So here we have our ERD. Primary key for volunteer was volunteer ID. Primary key for district was district ID. Primary key for beach was beach ID. And if you remember, the reviewer said, we haven't particularly got a primary key jumping out at us. And in this case, we can only use the data that we're being given. We can't introduce any new attributes. So we couldn't, for example, put in a review number. So what we've got to do is use attributes that are there in the table in the sample data. So if we combine together the beach ID and the review year, that would uniquely identify each review. So we've got a case where we've got two attributes that make up the key, review year and beach ID. In this database, there's no many-to-many relationships to resolve. We're then going to add the foreign keys, and it's quite easy to do this if you follow these steps. Go to the many side of the relationship. So here in district, here's the many side. What we need to do is get a copy of the primary key from the one side, that's volunteer, and put it in on the many side as a foreign key. So we take volunteer ID, we put it in district, the foreign key. You can see the asterisk behind indicating it's a foreign key. Let's have a look at between district and beach. Here's the many side. We go back to the one side and get the primary key, district ID, and we put that in as a foreign key. There's district ID, the asterisk. Let's have a look between beach and review. Here's the many side. So we go back to the one side, get the primary key, beach ID, and put it in as a foreign key. Now, it's already there as beach ID because it forms part of the primary key. So all we need to do is put the asterisk behind it to indicate that it is a foreign key. The next stage is to add the attributes to the ERD. So anything in that sample data that's not on the ERD, we need to add. So let's look at volunteer ID first. We know we had a volunteer surname and we had a volunteer mobile number as well. So that is obviously uniquely identified by the volunteer ID. We also had a district which had just the district name. So that district ID uniquely identifies each district. The beach had a beach name, a beach type, and whether there was a lifeguard. That beach ID uniquely identifies those pieces of data about the beach. And then finally, the review, rubbish collected, the clean rating, and the number of cleanups are dependent on both beach ID and the review year because they were different for each review year. That's our ERD now with the attributes added. The next thing we're going to do is create table structures in Access.